This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. They are proud to partner with the National Applied Artificial Intelligence Consortium. They're doing a big old summit in Miami-Dade, Florida. This is Building the AI Workforce Through Community Colleges, February 19th through 20th. Great time to be in Miami. John, you like Miami, right?
I do.
Nice and warm down there.
Nice and warm and just scenery to behold.
To behold. Yes, all sorts of scenery.
All sorts.
People and nature.
Yep.
And so there are some limited travel stipends available. So you can learn more at naaic.ai or nextgenmfg.org. And as always, we are super thankful for the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing for sponsoring ChatEDU. So, Jonathan, welcome back.
Thank you, Matthew. It's nice to be here.
Only you and my mother call me Matthew. I love it. No, it's perfect. It's great. It feels very, very appropriate. So Liz is on her fall tour.
Oh, man. She is racking up the miles.
Unbelievable. She is in Boston today at Learning Forward. She's with Jen Price and Ryan Carey from Thomaston, Connecticut, and they are doing a presentation together on the work that they've collaborated around with. Thomaston had lots and lots of teachers take the micro-credential and school leaders as well. It had a lot of positive impact, so they're presenting on that. And you've done Thomaston work too, yeah?
Yes, the Thomaston group not only did the micro-credential, a number of them, but they integrated many of the lessons learned through that work into a revision of their strategic plan, which I facilitated last year, and really helped to reframe the focus of the district on durable skills, and they're really headed off in a great direction.
Yeah, it feels like a theme for, of late, right? So the whole conversation with Superintendent Scarice a couple of weeks ago was around a strategic plan in AI. This is the alignment in Thomaston between AI and their strategic plan. So it's a good reminder, we all want to talk about tools, but in reality, we got to talk about what we're trying to accomplish first and foremost, right?
Exactly. And the shift in the very rare policy and district work that I continue to do, even in this new role, is almost exclusively centered around trying to reframe systems in alignment with those durable skills. Yeah. Teaching, assessing, making sure kids have what they need to succeed in a world where AI is going to be part of their lives.
Perfect. Hey, should we try something fun?
Sure, let's try it. I do feel like it's a bit of an experiment. I always feel like this is fun for you, but a little bit terrifying for Liz or whoever else is sitting in this chair. So go ahead. I'm ready.
It's all good. So let's see. I'm going to turn this towards the camera for those of you who are watching on Spotify or YouTube. So this is the new interface for ChatGPT. It's for advanced voice mode. Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. It's going great. And yeah, absolutely. This is the new advanced voice mode in action. So anyone watching can kind of see how it works and just hang out with us while we chat.
Yeah. So you might remember, Jonathan, before you would just see that blue dot, but now you can see on the screen, the transcript is actually happening. So I've got this text field that I'm able to take advantage of. And for the purposes of just visual learners or learning stuff, it could be kind of interesting. It's also funny that for the first week this thing was live, as soon as you hit go with the little advanced voice mode, prompt, it said, "Good morning, Matt," or "Good afternoon, Matt." And I was whoa.
Yes,
Hang on. You don't say hi to me until I say hi to you. That's how these rules work.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if it dialed it back because I gave it that instructions. My guess is the whole world was like, oh, don't do that. And so they changed the UI, user interface. All right, so let's try this. Hey, so I'm with my executive director, Jonathan Costa, and he's rumored to play some golf. I don't think he's ever been to the Torrington Country Club in Torrington, Connecticut. Could you show him a map of the course or maybe, anything about the club visually? All right, so Jonathan, we paused the recording there for a second because actually ChatGPT had a critical error. It couldn't actually pull an image up, but it did for me earlier today, and so I just went back to a previous thread. Maybe we can see that in the screen. Let me hand you the phone. So, what are we looking at there?
So this is a course outline essentially, and it's interesting because it is generally representative. But I have been a member at TCC for 12 years, and I've never seen this particular representation. It's pretty close, but not perfect.
What's the next image?
The next image purports to be a aerial view of the clubhouse, which it is not.
Oh, really? Does it look nicer than your club or no?
It's just different. It is sort of a hilltop kind of club, but it's not Torrington Country Club.
Interesting. Wait, so do you mean that the AI made a mistake?
Yes, it did.
Oh, wow. Curious.
Yes.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, shocking. Shocking.
I'm on 4 hours of sleep, so
Yeah.
the snark may be a little bit
It's all
higher,
right.
higher
It's all right.
today.
Snark index.
So really, really interesting. So, my aspiration here is that this new advanced voice mode, because we've said for a long time, voice, video, VR, vision, right, become super important. So the idea that I could be in conversation and also be looking at stuff
Sure.
is really compelling for learning of all sorts of variety, as long as it's accurate.
And obviously, context matters. If you were truly not used to or hadn't visited the Torrington Country Club and you were looking at that image, you would think that that's what it was. But having been there a few times, I can tell you with confidence that it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should let's give you a little bit of an ego stroke here. So as you looked at that map, how many of those holes, even though I know it wasn't 100% accurate, have you had holes in one on?
Just 2.
Oh, only 2.
Yes.
But how many have you had in your whole golfing career?
7.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Wow.
it's 10,000 hour rule,
Yeah, right. What holes at TCC did you get the hole-in-ones
I've
on?
had a hole-in-one on hole number 3 in a tournament, actually, and then on hole number 6.
God, I hope somebody bought you a beer at the end of that.
Well, the way it works is when you get a hole-in-one at a club like Torrington, you are technically on the hook to buy everyone else.
Oh, come on.
No, that's the way it works.
That's so interesting.
But we have insurance.
Oh, good. Do you really
Yes.
hole-in-one insurance?
Absolutely.
That's hysterical.
So when someone gets a hole-in-one, everyone at the club gets clipped $2, and that money goes to the club, so everyone gets a free
I
drink.
can't even wrap my head around this. There's like
True.
so many layers of, wait,
Oh, yes.
I feel scared. No, I don't feel scared. Wait, I got to pay my dues. Wait, there's $2 on my dues?
That's it.
Oh, this is why I don't play golf.
I understand.
It's too taxing.
I understand.
All right, listen. So I said we're going to have fun. Was that fun?
It was fun.
All right, good. Well, with that, I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Jonathan Costa.
And this is ChatEDU, the AI and Education podcast. In today's episode, Beyond the Vision, Building a Policy Infrastructure to Meet the AI Moment, we will visit with this guy, Jonathan Costa, in red. Andre's going to love that you wore a red shirt. I keep blending into the wall. He's so upset with me. Jonathan is a frequent flyer and a guest on the podcast a lot. And so we're going to talk about some policy landscape shifts that probably need to be made in order to fulfill the kind of full potential, as well as deal with some of the risks of AI in education. I think AI writ large. And first, we're going to do a little rundown, some stories, and then we will do this conversation around policy. And of course, we will end with a bright byte. Are you getting lots of like end of year wrap up type stuff in your, various feeds?
I do. Yes. So this is the season, and it is an interesting perspective because you get drawn in. It's hard to stay away from them. It's like you want to look, you want to just dive in a little bit. And yes, I am getting them mostly from a variety of fitness apps that I frequent.
Oh, do you track your fitness?
Only obsessively.
Go back and listen to a couple episodes Jonathan's been on. We've talked a little bit about it. So what, what's your big takeaway?
I like to look at trends.
Yeah.
And the app data overviews are really good at saying, over the last 6 months, your sleep's gotten better, your steps are up, et cetera. And it really is an interesting perspective.
It's wild. We were in Colorado last week, and your fitness app had all sorts of things to say.
Oh, I mean, and we've had this conversation. I was shocked in that my health tracker, I use a Whoop, and it recognized the time zone change and recommended adjustments based on sleep disruption because of that. It also warned me about inclement weather and being careful walking outside because it was going to be slippery. And yet my Outlook calendar had no idea I was in a new location, and my calendar was totally screwed up.
Which is crazy because your phone, your watch, your laptop, and they all have geospatial awareness.
And yet, it was frustrating.
Interesting. I wonder if that would have happened on Google. All right, moving on. So one of the reasons I mentioned the kind of wrapped stuff is that another frequent flyer on the podcast, Joanne Mumley, who did a great episode with it, one of the best performing episodes we've had. It's called Murder She Prompted.
Yes, that was
It was
great.
probably a cool title, but also she just really did a great job talking through some stuff. She's an English department head in her district. So she sent this little note over to us, which we really appreciate. ChatEDU was her top podcast, and she streamed it 1,765 minutes, which meant that she was a top 2% fan. So we are super grateful. All right, speaking of social stuff, real quickly, Liz and I are both, you're not a huge, you're in this beautiful chapter of your career where you don't need to be out hustling on social media. Liz and I are hustling. So if you want to give Liz and I a Christmas or Kwanzaa or a Hanukkah gift, come follow us on ye old LinkedIn, right? That would be great. And if all the listeners out there, if you're on LinkedIn, right, and that's a place where you frequent, please follow Liz and or myself. Just follow us both. And honestly, the ChatEDU podcast just put up a page where we're putting up some clips and other things. And some of the stuff we cover on the podcast, some of it's just like interesting things that are happening during the week and conferences we're going to. So we'd be super grateful if folks would follow us there.
So what is the primary metric that you follow on LinkedIn as you consider traffic in that site?
It's unhealthy, Jonathan.
Well, because I'm wondering if there's some friendly competition between you and Liz on whatever metric you're thinking of.
I think it's more Liz and I and other people.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We have Jonathan spearheaded and we built a social media literacy curriculum called The Social Balance, really designed to help people have healthy relationships around social media. In fact, if anyone's interested in that course, we're essentially, providing it at no cost to any school district, public or private out there. This is really great for like middle and high school kids to learn about the STEM behind social media, like dopamine and algorithms and all that kind of stuff, as well as building healthy habits. Liz and I need to work on our healthy habits because I think we feel a little bit competitive, but it's not. Like there are 20 or 30 people in the community, probably more, that are doing a lot of this work. And, Liz and I just appreciate being a voice in the community.
Excellent.
That's what I tell myself.
There you go.
All right. So something I did post on LinkedIn about is the Project Iceberg.
Oh.
Did you see this in the news?
I did.
Yeah. So this is from MIT, and it came out on the 26th of November. So it's a little dated right now. It's now December 8th, but we're going to talk about it. So this was a preprint. We will drop in a link to ARXIV, and it's essentially measuring skills centered around exposure in the AI and economy. So what they did, they actually used a bot to do this, like an agent, which maybe calls into question a thing or two, but nonetheless. So this bot kind of crawled around the labor market, looked at 151 million U.S. workers and 32,000 skills. Executive director of a nonprofit agency might have been one of them. And they also then looked at 13,000 AI tools. And they discovered that there is this like kind of hidden, I don't know if it's really hidden, exposure, because in all the skills that we have, like if you look at your job today, there's a bunch of skills you'll do. And some of those skills map to what AI can do. Yep. Right? And that's all MIT said. It was very helpful. They actually have these really cool like geographic lookups. So you can say, okay, for 06759, which is right here in Litchfield County, what's the skill exposure based on the labor market? I mean, it's interesting stuff. The problem is why you and I both saw it in the headlines, right? So look at this headline. This is from Yahoo. Terrifying new MIT study claims AI already has the cognitive and administrative capabilities to replace 11.7% of the U.S. workforce, worth $1.whatever trillion of labor market value.
That's a headline I would click on.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Clickbait for sure.
Yeah. Or, the Neuron newsletter, which I love. I read it every single day. Last week, ChatGPT turns 3. Will your job make it to 4? I mean, come on. This is not what the study said.
I understand.
The study said there's overlap. Jonathan and I were just playing with the new advanced voice mode feature, and it hallucinated its face off. It couldn't do work accurately. And that is the deal, right? We have often referenced the Scale AI Remote Labor Index. It's where they looked at a whole bunch of jobs, right? And they saw that in a whole bunch of jobs, AI basically in a multi-step job, like build a video game or make a video or, redesign a house, it fails 97.5% of the time.
And I've had this conversation with my oldest son, who is a tech director for a large international shipping company. And the challenge in multi-step is that for every step, the percentage error multiplies.
Right.
And so you have to be really, really careful.
Yeah, because you're just letting the thing roll and all of a sudden 5% becomes, right?
Absolutely. I mean, 1% off at launch is, 50% off at landing. So it's a challenge.
Somehow in this world, I guess when there's incentives around dollars, we'll never find the right balance. But I mean, just look at Microsoft. There's a piece in Futurism and lots of other places saying that Microsoft has had to, cut their revenue quotas by 50% or even more based on the AI's agents, the ability, people say this is the year of the agent. And it's probably like the decade of the agent. And who knows? I mean, who knows if these systems will ever get this right?
The one image I had in my mind when I read it, though, was thinking about skills AI can do as one circle and skills in your job as the other circle. So it's sort of a Venn diagram. And the more complex and human-facing the role is, the smaller the overlap between the two circles. And I think despite the sensationalism of the headline, there is some long-term challenges in that the more basic the job, the bigger the overlap. Because if you have a very strict set of defined tasks, those are things that AI can do very well. If all your job is interacting with people and reacting to context and thinking strategically, the overlap is much, much smaller. So I think long term, there are challenges in terms of the despair one might feel if you haven't had a chance to be in the job market yet. How many of those opportunities will be displaced? Whereas if you're fortunate enough to be an executive director or in high-level management, you're probably safer because that time is so far off. So it's a cautionary tale, even with the dismissing of the sort of the clickbait sensationalism of the headline.
Yes, no, I'm so glad you said that, because it grounds on why I like covering these stories. I mean, obviously I get a little swept up with the headlines and really want people to be more responsible in their journalism. That said, the reason the ChatEDU AI and Education podcast talks about these labor market stories is because they are a huge signal to schools and post-secondary and workforce development about the skills people need, right? Because exactly what you've described is the canaries in the coal mine study from Stanford from a few months ago now, which described a frozen labor market at that automatable level, right? Absolutely. So take a tool like Deep Research. So if you work for one of the big three consulting firms, Deep Research is that entry-level job. So the implication is, because it's, go do an analysis of the demographic trends of this community and figure out, the market opportunities, blah, 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 blah. So that used to take a human being, an entry-level job, all sorts of time. Deep Research will do that in 4.5 minutes. I think the implication is, yes, if you're executive director, good deal. The other implication is that we need to figure out how, because what's the next job above doing that research report is the interacting with the human beings who are the consumers of that report, or helping them troubleshoot or do analysis. It's the higher order thinking. It's almost like Bloom's. And so I think if this remains consistent, where AI can do that first level of automatable tasks, what does that mean about the skills that we need to make sure that kids, they look a lot like, what's that VOG, POG thing that people are always talking about?
The vision of the graduate.
Yeah, the portrait of the graduate vision. Yeah. Those are the skills that are above that automatable level. Yeah, so interesting. All right, so let me just go for another second on my upsetness around these headlines. So what you just said is a really rational way to think about what do we do and how do we respond in K-12 workforce development and post-secondary. The problem is that when we see headlines that say AI is going to do all the jobs, then all of a sudden the conversation is not thoughtful and deliberate about the skills that people need. And we should just remind ourselves again, though, that those headlines aren't accurate, right? So there's a story from Futurism this week where one of these agentic AI tools deleted someone's entire D drive, right? So Google's AI deletes an entire hard drive. This is a thing called anti-gravity, which is their new agent coder. So a Reddit user says the Google's anti-gravity AI accidentally wiped out their entire D drive while trying to clear the cache. The AI repeatedly groveled in response, telling the user, "I'm horrified. I'm deeply, deeply sorry. I cannot express how sorry I am," calling the deletion a critical failure, right? So, maybe if we can just be more realistic about the headline piece, it will help us be more thoughtful about the skill development piece.
As inflammatory as the headline is, I don't think the description of the error is inflammatory enough. I think I would be hospitalized if my D drive got wiped out by mistake. I don't know what I would do.
I keep everything on Google Drive, so it's delete away.
Myself included.
Oh, actually, no, but you and I do both have do you back up all your presentations to the cloud?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So, I guess at some level we've been dealing with these, this is not exactly a new thing where technology will fail us. Now, my most amusing version of this, I have to say, so we had a great time. We were in Colorado Springs at the AESA, which is the national conference. John Jonathan did a great session on Chesterton's Fence, something he's talked about here on the podcast. Liz did a session on personal interest projects. Her book, by the way, has sold out on both Amazon and ASCD.
Nice.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? So Learning They'll Love. I think you can still order it on Amazon, and if you use the code RADA30, you'll get 30% off, which is cool. So then on Sunday after the conference, you guys came home. I had this nice opportunity to do a keynote for a big national association of folks that do like student councils, FFA, Future Business Leaders America, basically like extracurricular. And we did a really fun, I thought it was really fun, but folks were pretty happy, keynote around how critical, in fact, speaking to these skills we're just describing, like in FBLA, in FFA, in student council, one of the places where you can really learn and master those skills that we're talking about to kind of jump above that frozen level of the workforce. But anyhow, so it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I woke up on Sunday morning. It was a Sunday keynote. And I looked at my weather app on Google. I'm an Android guy. Kent County, 22 degrees, flurries. Feels like 22. And then here's the AI weather report, Jonathan. It says, a chilly, flursy start to the day will give way to drier but still cold conditions. Yeah. Are you familiar with the term flursy?
I am not.
Do you think
Interesting.
Do you think that was a hallucination, or do you think it was a sense of humor?
I don't know. I think you could see it one of both ways, right?
Yeah.
It could be because it was descriptive, and it's like sneet, right? It's snow and sneet together, but I'm not sure if I would be impressed or horrified by that term.
Now, a bunch of us were on the bus going to the airport after that, and people were like, "Ooh, I think I'm coming down with a bad case of the flursies. I may not be able to go to work tomorrow." Now, listen, that said, right, as much as we poke fun at this stuff, I mean, one of the points that you and I make a lot is that, yes, agentically, these systems don't seem like they're going to kill it. And at those lower level automatable tasks, they will do fine. The interesting place is the collaborative, where you're really working collaboratively with AI. And so one of the places it's been fun, it's sort of agentic, but I just have to point out, like, I don't want to be a full force critic here. There were a bunch of people at the conference that do FFA. And so we've been talking about vibe coding. We had that. Did you get to hear Yaron Overeem's episode?
Yes, absolutely.
So cool. It's like a principal from New Zealand. I love the idea that they get sabbatical too.
Yeah, one every 5 years.
Can you imagine?
That's pretty nice.
That's pretty nice. In New Zealand too. So Yaron did a whole bunch of stuff about vibe coding and Google AI Studio, both for his kids and administratively. So I wanted to see what it would look like. So the morning of the keynote, I just went to Google AI Studio and said, hey, can you build me an FFA judge app, just plain human language text, right? Build a FFA judge app where it's going to look, this future farmers of America, where it's going to look at the kid with the microphone and the camera, but also look at the poster behind them and give them feedback and kind of interview them and grill them and prepare them, right? And it crushed it. I mean, 3.5 minutes, it spun the whole thing up. The camera worked, the microphone worked. It understood all the context. I could have given it source documents if it was helpful. So, I mean, I think we have to be, balanced. I have to be balanced in my approach.
I think that the connection to context is interesting too, because if you didn't know what flurries were or that it needed to be freezing for it to be flurrying, then flursy wouldn't make any sense to you. But if you had that context, it's sort of like I would smile and say, oh, I get that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll find out if I keep looking at my weather app and it's making like cute little weather descriptions. We'll know what's going on. But I had fun with it. Cool. Put that up on LinkedIn. Yeah. So another way to look at this, though, is, I mean, clearly, as much as we're saying, yes, AI is not going to come wipe out all our jobs, there are big implications, as you've already described, around our jobs. It's a really neat story in Business Insider where Polly Thompson, basically said, hey, ChatGPT, this was based on, by the way, Ernst & Young built a tool called like EYQ that would let all the Ernst & Young employees put in information about their jobs, and it will tell them, here's how your job will change rationally in the next 5 years and how to kind of mitigate that. And so she said, okay, I don't have access to the Ernst & Young EYQ tool, but I'm just going to go to Gemini and ChatGPT, load up a whole bunch of stuff about my job, which is journalism, and it will tell me about how my job's going to change over the next 5 years. Really, really interesting. Did you and I were kicking this around to get to try it?
I did not, but it was, did you know that Ernst & Young has a mandatory retirement age at 62?
Really?
It is Ernst & Young, after all.
It's almost as good as a Flursy.
Yeah, it's true.
That's funny. Yeah, I did try it, and it was pretty neat, I have to say, although it was a big aha to me. And we have been, I think, appropriately tough on ChatGPT in terms of like enshittification and where the platform's going to go. And if it's really an appropriate tool, I feel like we were a little prescient because you can see the code red happening at OpenAI right now. But I tried it, and it's interesting because like I can't, unlike Polly Thompson, you and I can't really, I mean, you sort of can upload your job description as a executive director and have it understand. My job's evolving and slightly weird. And so, but what is interesting is that ChatGPT has been talking to me for 3 years. So I said, hey, based on everything you know about me, how's my job going to change over the next 5 years? And how should I leverage those opportunities and mitigate those challenges?
Sure.
Jonathan, it was wild. It was so spot on. Like had I gone to an executive coach, I mean, I won't go into it, but it was just really, really insightful and helpful. Yeah. Now, interestingly, because I've been advocating with school districts to go to Gemini, the challenge with Gemini, when I went to Gemini, it said, we believe in people's user privacy. So I don't know jack about you.
Well, I would imagine that if your job is evolving and weird, that speaks to the security of it.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to replace something that's evolving and weird than it is something that's clearly defined and easy to predict.
Yes, for sure. But because ChatGPT has been retaining history on me since November of 22, it just has a lot of context and insight.
So what was the insight? Well, give me an example of an insight.
I mean, it's almost like where we started with Thomaston, where we were talking about Westport and being strategic. Yeah. It basically said, like, you kill it at keynotes and the podcast and the micro-credential. Like, you're a great operator, essentially. And it's whatever. It's sycophantic. So it's telling me I'm brilliant. But it basically says you got to start thinking about being more strategic in lots of different ways, whether it's building the capacity of our team. It's all stuff you and I are working on, but more strategic, higher levels of thought leadership, higher levels of, kind of working with national organizations and statewide organizations and building our capacity internally. But unfortunately, Gemini, because I appreciate that Google's education counts don't really do history tracking, it won't have that context. It's a real dilemma. Well,
I noticed because we have been talking about migrating to Gemini for all of those reasons.
Yeah.
And yet your go-to tool was advanced voice mode on ChatGPT.
Yeah, I confess, right? And I think I said that on the episode, which was called, by the way, Signing Off of ChatGPT. Yeah. I stand by everything that we say, but I did say in that episode, I still use the tool. It's super helpful. Yeah. I just don't appreciate that if it's going to become the place where we go have adult erotic chats, that it's really the tool that's appropriate for like the university, the Cal State system to have 500,000 learners on.
Sure.
And what they're doing with Sora 2 is gross and irresponsible. And with that, OpenAI will be sponsoring tomorrow's episode of ChatEDU. All right, so lots of stuff. One other quick thing, let's talk about the stuff that you came to talk about. But I thought this was really interesting. The EdSafe Alliance, which is a wonderful organization, has been there's a bunch of new policy work that's going to happen around AI safety and kids. But Liz and I talk a lot about character AI, Meta's AI, Grok, these basically relationship chatbots, right? We know it's well established now. Go follow the Rhythm Project on LinkedIn, that kids in significant numbers are having AI-style companion conversations with these chatbots. And character AI just reduced their age gating and, little tinkering around the edges. Hopefully OpenAI will fix some of the really significant problems that led to the horrible death by suicide of Adam Rain. But one of the places that kids are having not companion chats, but they are sort of, right? Is when I say, hey, talk to Thomas Jefferson or talk to Karl Marx or talk to Jung. Let's say I'm saying, go ahead and talk to Jung, and I create this chatbot in Magic School or School AI, and kids are having a conversation. Or, kids on a school device and they're in character AI. These are places where kids are talking about all sorts of sensitive stuff. And there are firewalls and guardrails and flags and all these systems. But basically, one of the things, the EdSafe is a practical guide to safety and liability and mandated reporting, and it covers a number of things. But this idea that there needs to be mandated reporting inside these systems, I thought was really interesting. You and I are pulling a group of leaders from around our region here at the agency on Friday. It's absolutely one of the things that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of mandated reporting and child protection is huge. I do some volunteer work for NEASC, and we do international school accreditation. Mm-hmm. And before you can even get into the ACE protocol, you have to demonstrate the bona fides of your child protection policy, and the whole challenge of following child protection from an in-person to an online environment. Mm-hmm. creates all kinds of policy and management challenges for organizations. But the greater time spent online in a virtual environment, the more important those child protection policies are. And, wholeheartedly, should your chatbot be a mandated reporter?
Yeah. I mean, there are flags, right? If you're using any of the number of, kind of like GoGuardian type applications, there are ways in which things will get flagged in there, but it does really raise an important question, especially because we know sometimes this doesn't go great for all sorts of reasons, right? These chatbots are still probabilistic. Sometimes I say, show me the Torrington Golf Club, and it does, and sometimes it shows me something else. And so that is true of whatever you're in. You're going to have lots of guardrails inside Magic School. We still don't know with great assurance that when a kid is ideating or having a challenging conversation about a hard thing that's happening in their home context or their family, that stuff is really, being appropriately mediated by the chatbot and or being, kind of visibly surfaced. So I think I really appreciate the work that they're doing. You can check out the link we'll put in the show notes. They propose a sort of 4-step protocol to flag, notify, assess, and act around this type of mandated reporting inside these chatbot communications, as well as policy and communication guidance for staff, students, parents, and school leaders, stressing transparent monitoring and proactive AI safety policies. So it's just, this is moving fast. A lot of times these conversations are very tool-based, and we move quickly on the tool-based. It's a good, important reminder to say there are generations of safeguards and strategies, as you just described, that we've had in place in schools, and we can't let the shiny object take us off the kind of focal point here. Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks for doing a little bit of a deep dive. All right, so now, John, I'm going to talk about, in a second, the other me, the recorded me, is going to talk about the winter micro-credential.
Okay.
It's going to start, we're just about getting filled up now. It's filling up pretty nicely. This will be our 6th micro-credential cohort. Awesome. Soups, principals, teachers, tech directors, university folks, kindergarten teachers. It's been this really nice spread, both here in Connecticut and around the world. This is one of the things that we're most proud of in our work. So if you are interested in joining, I think that's going to start in mid-January. So we'll talk about that. That's going on. And also feel free to reach out to us if there's a lot of folks who've been reaching out around the student version of this. This is our student AI literacy course. You can always email us at chatEDU@edadvance.org.
There you go.
If you enjoy our insights on AI and education, don't miss out on our next 6-week AI and Education micro-credential launching this winter in partnership with Southern Connecticut State University. This self-paced online course for educators and leaders in primary, secondary, and higher education across the globe covers AI essentials from foundational concepts to advanced skills like prompting, AI-driven assessments, and multimedia creation. We've added a bunch of new content for the winter cohort, including a focus on emerging risks like AI companions, energy, and the environment. We'll dive into the latest on Notebook LM, which could be a course unto itself. There are new student AI literacy resources in the Future Focus module, as well as important updates on student-facing tools like custom gems and guided learning in Gemini. And finally, we've added Google Vids to our great collection of multimedia AI tools that we cover. Each cohort includes 4 live Zoom sessions for hands-on support, and participants earn a Credly digital credential upon completion. Visit skills21.org/AI/micro to sign up now.
All right, John, now it's time to go beneath the surface.
All right.
You've been doing a lot of work. You actually did a little bit of this at a keynote you and I did in the fall here at the agency, where, again, almost like the Thomaston and the Westport stories, right, where policy is interacting with strategy, interacting with AI. So what are you thinking? I'm going to pose some questions to you, but give us the landscape.
Well, it's we did touch on this at our conference in the fall, and we'll dig a little bit deeper this Friday in our leadership conference. Yep. I also had the opportunity a week or so ago to talk to the Connecticut Commission on Educational Technology about what we at the agency are doing related to AI. And knowing that I had several statewide policy folks in the room, a captive audience, I took the opportunity to speak to them about these 4 areas of policy adjustment that I thought we need to grapple with. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because they're really not directly connected to AI per se. Mm-hmm. They are associated with the concurrent environment change that AI is driving and how public schools and at both the state and local level need to respond to these changes to make sure that our educational experience for young learners remains relevant, engaging, and aligned with what we believe they need most to be prepared for life learning and work beyond school.
And this is a Connecticut conversation for you, but clearly this is basically global. There's not a single corner of the world. That's where the weird truisms of our field, basically the school structures, the overstuffed curriculum. It was pretty consistent wherever we go.
And it's the way I tried to think about it was both what are the things the state could do and what are the things the district can do. And unfortunately, the state level stuff moves much slower.
Really?
Yes. So I tried to frame it as both, but if the state can't respond in time, there is still room for local districts to respond in the meantime.
Good. I like that because a lot of people will say, we even see this on things like AI policy. Oh, the state hasn't set a direction yet, so we can't. Or, the district hasn't set a direction, so the school can't. Or the school hasn't set a direction, so the teacher can't, right?
Exactly.
There's local kind of control at every level.
And this is common, not just in the world of AI, but over 40 years, thinking about improvement glass ceilings, right? So I can't do it until, you have a lot you can do before the level above you even notices that you're doing anything. So you might as well get started. And if you hit up against a barrier, then you deal with it at the time. So we tried to frame it as here are challenges for the state and here are aligned and appropriate challenges that you can address at the local level.
Cool. All right, walk us through them.
So the first one is really just about the vision of the future, the whole vision of the graduate, portrait of the graduate. If you're in the world of NEASC, community expectations for learning, it's just long past the time where the state of Connecticut needs to have a vision of the graduate. I have facilitated 50 of these across the state and in New York and Massachusetts.
You're the king, Esther.
And they all are basically the same thing, right? It's the communication, critical thinking, problem solving. And why do we have a system where all the towns do these individually, and yet we don't have a centralized resource for skills, rubrics, materials, et cetera, et cetera? And all you need to know is that the state of New York, which has been regions focused forever, now has a statewide vision of the graduate. So even in a state like New York, they've done this. So we should have a statewide vision of the graduate. And if lacking that or until that happens, at the local district level, we can develop or reiterate the importance of the local district vision of the graduate and do work to improve its implementation locally while we wait for the state to coalesce its resources to do the same.
It's interesting because in the Northeast, I think we're all pretty familiar with this in different parts of the country. But, as you know, I've been doing a lot of traveling in the Midwest and Wyoming, in parts of the Pacific Northwest. And it is inconsistent in terms of, just a shared expectation about what does every kid need to know and be able to do when they walk across that stage.
Right. And the big challenge, and we've talked about this, this has been a topic of conversation at this agency for years. What are you not going to do so you can do this? So the state of New York created a vision of the graduate, and in it still lists academic preparation, and they haven't done anything to call any of their standards. So basically they're saying, in your 10-gallon curriculum bucket, we just placed another 2 gallons, but didn't give you the opportunity to take 2 gallons out. So how are districts in New York supposed to now absorb this new thing? And I fear the same in Connecticut. We have dumped the challenge of how do we integrate these critical skills and dispositions into curriculum practices without some sort of overall framework to make room for that to happen.
And so just to ground that, right, you got the 10-gallon bucket, 90% of that 10 gallons, right, is declarative knowledge and skills. Know this fact, know this fact, know this fact. And then the other piece is these dispositions, problem solving, critical thinking, learning to learn, managing ambiguity, global citizenship, and the like.
Exactly.
And one theory is that, you learn how to use those skills in the application, or you learn to demonstrate the knowledge, through the application of these skills. But that's that's a little hard to imagine, right? Because it takes time to have students demonstrate critical thinking, problem solving, along with demonstrating their understanding.
Right.
I think you've argued for a while that the bucket is way too full of declarative knowledge.
No question. I mean, the whole challenge, and we've talked about vulnerable and durable, right? The biggest challenge of fortifying your curriculum to be durable in the face of AI is increasing student engagement and increasing the application of these skills and dispositions.
Which they need to navigate this very complicated labor market.
And in order to do that, all of those activities are time consuming.
Yep.
So we have 180 days, roughly 5.5 hours a day. And if you look over the last 75 years, we have done nothing but add. No one has taken away. So to dump a vision of the graduate on top of an already overstuffed curriculum is a problem. And so it shouldn't surprise you that my second policy recommendation at the state level is to lean out curriculum frameworks so that we can focus on power content standards and the application of critical skills and dispositions. Okay. If you go into a faculty room and talk about curriculum, and you and I are both former history teachers, if the question is, where are you versus what have your students learned lately, you get a notion that we're on the curriculum treadmill. We're just trying to get through everything, cover everything, rather than learn everything. So how do we create curriculum frameworks at the state level that create that room and that space and that expectation so we can apply, our learning time to acquisition of those key power content standards along with the application of those skills and dispositions. And there's no question that it does happen in districts, right? We have teachers who are doing wonderful work, but it's almost like they're doing it despite the system, not because of the system. And so, at the local level, you can get a jump on this. Our own colleague, Lisa Bowden, has been doing great curriculum work using AI chatbots to help.
Notebook LM specifically, yeah.
Exactly, to create those curriculum frameworks that focus on durable skills and critical content standards, and also to align PD and school improvement planning with the development and application of those leaned out curriculums. So this is one of those things that we want the state to lead, but if they can't or don't or are delayed in doing so, we have local tools and contexts that you can apply to help get a head start.
So there's some interdependency between the feds and the state, right? So for a long time, No Child Left Behind, Common Core, the feds would sort of set an expectation that schools were judged around, and the state would translate that. Maybe if we move into a new chapter here, at least in the U.S., where there's some disruption, I don't think we're even measuring some of the core accountability measures.
So that was one of the vestigial hangovers from No Child Left Behind was the state accountability through annual testing. Given the current administration
tread with caution
policy, it's sort of hard to believe that the current eviscerated federal Department of Education would come after a state because it didn't do something. Yeah, I think states right now, one of the interesting side consequences of our current federal policy may be that states are freer to innovate because I don't think there's anyone watching the store at this point. It's kind of interesting.
Well, there's two kind of trends going on. We both have this potential autonomy at the state level, and there's also, Tom Screese talked about this because you and I and he are all about the same age, a couple of years older than Tom and I. But there have been a number of times throughout our chapters of our careers where we thought, the labor market is going to just make it so clear that kids need these skills and dispositions that you've spoken about in the portrait of the graduate, that we're just going to do it. But this may be it. Like the size of the AI sledgehammer, and I'm talking about agentic AI. I'm talking about exactly what you described about the frozen level of the labor market, first rung of the labor market, and AI's ability to kind of take out those, because those automatable tasks, knowledge, and skills is the 90% of the bucket.
Well, and this is something that I've said several times to audiences, is that I felt like for the first 38 years of my career, arguing for more hands-on, relevant, engaging instruction was sort of a debatable thing, right? Come on, you really ought to do this. It'll make school more interesting, engaging for kids. And
Right.
it was sort of a debate.
Yeah.
I really feel like the age of AI has sort of closed the door on the debate. I
Yep.
mean, I just don't see any defensible position around a static, passive learning environment. It just isn't supportable by anything at this point.
Okay, so this could be the window in a couple different ways,
I
which
believe
is super
so.
interesting.
Yep.
All right, so we've got Vision the Graduate, we've got a thinned out curriculum.
And so the next one is related to the first two, and that is focusing on developing a more holistic accountability structure. Because if you look at the testing that we do in Connecticut, it is pretty much exclusively on foundational literacy in math and language arts, which I would argue is still necessary, but everyone would also agree are not sufficient. So the things that we report to parents, the kind of frameworks and metrics we use to judge school success are still really firmly grounded just on a level of basic skill that is not enough for kids to be competitive in the world that they are going to live in. And so how do we revisit our accountability index, the way we report performance to parents, the way we report performance of districts, to be more reflective of these critical skills and dispositions? And it was really interesting because as we were getting ready for this podcast and for our session on Friday, while we were in Colorado, I got an email from the College Board, which was a link to a survey. And the question was around the assessment of durable skills.
And AI literacy, I think, right?
Yes, exactly. And it was an indication to me that the primary testing arm in education in the United States sees the upcoming writing on the wall.
Okay.
And I believe that assessments of those critical skills are eventually going to be a systemic part of an educator's life. And I think that will be a game-changing moment, because when you are being held accountable to not just basic literacy in math and language arts, but also demonstrating growth over time for problem solving or critical thinking or communication, then the balance will finally arrive, and districts will have to pay attention to it in a way that they hadn't in the past. And we know it's hard to do, but as you know, I'm married to a retired art teacher, and Wendy, for 30 years, taught AP art. And at the end of that course, kids submit a portfolio of work. So they have done this in the artistic field forever. But to do it for everyone, every student is taking it to scale in a way that's going to be a challenge and is going to be expensive. And I've been to the College Board's campus in Princeton, New Jersey.
You think they got the money to
They
figure
do
it
not
out?
lack the resources to figure it out. But I do think that building those structures to provide critical feedback on essential skills and dispositions, both at the national and local level, will be sort of the dam-breaking moment as we finally make this part of every kid's experience in K-12.
So it's interesting because at some level, right, you have these in this order, right? We need this vision of the graduate that's more unified and widely distributed. We need to, I use the phrase thin out, but I love the word, you call it lean out. Yeah, it just feels like healthier.
Yeah.
We need to lean out the curriculum to get there. But at some level, number 3 could be the driver for number 1 and number 2, right? Because what we measure is what we do.
Yeah, no question about it. And the slide that I used with the commission was a framework that listed all of the content area. It was basically the testing schedule. And it's English language proficiency, English language arts and math, literacy universal screening, physical fitness, science, next generation science standards, and that's it. So it's sort of, I love the part of physical fitness is in there, but critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration are noticeably not.
Yep.
And the quote I have on that slide is, "What get measured gets done," Peter Drucker.
All the time. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. So yes, AP art and portfolio as an example, right? There's been state projects. Vermont, for instance, did all sorts of work, and it's been a pendulum. They've done it and then they pulled back. So you can do this stuff at scale. And we've covered at least 3 stories on PISA, and they, in their 2029 framework, it's a little ways off, are going to be actually doing both kind of digital media literacy as well as AI literacy assessments embedded inside that test, as well as measuring these more durable skills. So I think there are markers on the field about how this can be done. Just describe a little bit about that College Board campus. Give us one little touch for those of us who haven't been there.
It's on a 200-acre farm property in Princeton, New Jersey. And I facilitated, this is back when I was self-employed, I facilitated a retreat for an organization based at Princeton University. And it was held on the campus. And I drove up the driveway and just thought about the $89 that I had spent at that time for both my sons to take the SAT, and just said, this is where that money went. Because it is a corporate campus.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And it was a lovely place to be. But it did speak a little bit about the resources that all that test money goes to support.
There's a wonderful strategy. I haven't tried it yet, but Liz and I will do it when the weather's better, where you basically just put your phone in your pocket and you go walk with a colleague, right? And you have the phone just on record and you talk.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about how we could re-envision, measuring durable assessments and AI media literacy. And you talk for an hour, you walk around a beautiful bucolic place, and then you go back and you take the transcript and you dump it into your language model of choice and have it, so folks, as we approach the spring on said beautiful campus, just go walk and talk.
There you go.
Walk and talk and envision, drop it into an LLM, and let's get a plan next year, okay?
There you go.
Let's go. All right, number 4.
So number 4 is the most AI related, and that is align systems and policy and regulations to support the previous 3 and to recognize the role that AI plays in the life of a student. So, review your policy infrastructure, determine how it supports or inhibits a focus on student growth and acquisition of the vision of graduate. For example, districts have policies on performance reporting, right? We're going to hear from the district, the board's going to hear from the district every year on how it did on AP, SAT, et cetera. So how would policies change if part of our annual review was a focus on problem-solving portfolios, for example? Do you have a policy related specifically to the use of AI in the teaching and learning process? Is it Leon Furr's
the AI assessment scale? Yeah.
Do you have that as part of your framework? So everyone's on the same page about how AI can support the acquisition of content knowledge and students can use it appropriately in their demonstration of learning. So sort of the 4th layer is tying the first 3 together in a way that is policy consistent across the district and asking states to think about that as well. Although there have been a bunch of stories this week, as I'm sure you're followed, about the call for regulation and the 10-year ban on state regulation that was passed in the previous Congress. So, states, I think, in this area are probably more hamstrung than districts are, but I think doing a review of how all your policies work together to support this focus on critical skills and dispositions, the assessment and reporting of growth of same are all sort of part of the same conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps moving. The goalposts keep moving. There will be a little bit more autonomy in the states right now. California is about to push out a bunch of new proposed legislation in this space. They've just done some because when they did the BBB, I'll just call it that, they were not able to get that moratorium through to stop the states, which felt like a sane and rational thing. I mean, I get. There's 2 sides to that whole argument, but all right. Yeah. Super, super helpful and interesting. How was the room?
Oh, it was great. I mean, our friend Doug Casey, who is the executive director, invited us to speak, and there was a range of folks in the room. Our colleague Josh Smith sits on the committee. He's the superintendent in Region 15. There Nick Caruso from CABE, a bunch of folks who we've interacted with over the years are on the commission. And the commission itself was very responsive and grateful for the report of what we've done as an agency.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very sort of gratifying thing for me as the executive director to get such great feedback from the commission about the way we as an agency have pursued this and sort of the contributions we've made to the general thinking in this area and that we continue to make. So it was sort of a proud moment for me as the executive director.
That's awesome. I'm sure you crushed it. If you had to pick the stakeholders, or like the Goldilocks stakeholders, to really hear this message and to act on it, I'm imagining that's a combination of people in the legislature and the State Department of Education. Is that right?
Yep. And there were representatives of the department at the table that day, and that was one of the reasons I pushed for just the opportunity to share those 4 policy recommendations following a report of the things that we've done as an agency. But we are in the early stages of an effort that is statewide, not related to the commission, but to try to bring educational leaders from all constituent organizations in Connecticut, CABE, CAPS, CASBO, all of them, to talk about the critical instructional and practical considerations that districts are facing in this sort of unique time, to speak at one voice in front of the department and the legislature about the critical need for shifts in perspective and policy to help meet this moment. And it's not just driven by AI in that context. There are also, like the rising costs of special education, the rising costs of healthcare. These are all resource challenges that are going to face districts as we try to create the next generation of public schools. So how do we bring everyone together to the table? We recognize that all of these organizations have specific things that they care about. We are trying to bring a group together on the topics that we all agree need to be focused on in one way or the other.
Yeah, so good, Jonathan. I think it's a great framework. And again, we have a kind of Connecticut-centric lens, but as we both travel around the country, and one of the neat things about the states is it does create a laboratory, right? There is an opportunity for Oregon or California or Wyoming for someone to sort of move at a different pace and respond to the pressure points created by all 4 of these levers. So really, really interesting. So I applaud the work that you're doing on this. If anybody wants to reach out to you, it's Costa, C-O-S-T-A, at edadvance.org. So if someone at the College Board wants you to join them on a stroll with their phone on record mode and think through this stuff, I imagine you're happy to go back to New Jersey.
No question, yeah. And that whole effort, the statewide effort, is part of the RESC Alliance as well. So all of my 5 other colleagues are all involved in that effort. And it is truly, we are attempting to bring together a statewide audience for the benefit of everyone in Connecticut.
Cool. Well, you, as I alluded to before, I mean, to call it I hate the way the sunset chapter or whatever, but you are in the last 5 years, let's call it, right? Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say.
Yeah. So I think it would be nice to revisit this, because if you are right, these next 5 years may be the most consequential of your whole career. And you've been advocating for a bunch of these changes over the last several decades. And so if we're reading the tea leaves correctly, it'll be interesting to revisit and see, like, where are the pressure points? Does the labor market shifts, or does the College Board's response to labor market, and all, it's not just the labor market, it's navigating civil society in a world that, has a large presence of AI. So it'd be really fun to kind of keep track of these as they move.
And the potential and the perspective of watching what happens over the next 3, 4, or 5 years does keep me energized to get up and go to work every day, because I do feel like it is sort of the coalescing of a variety of different trends and factors that we've witnessed over the last several years coming together in an inflection point. And it's sort of interesting to be in this role at this time, and always a challenging and interesting time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if overall you're optimistic, but I'm going to take from what you just described that you generally are.
Well, it was one of the great gifts that my father left me. I generally have an optimistic worldview.
Yeah.
And I think if there's anything that you need to have to be an educator, it is an optimistic worldview. If we are doing our job right, we are giving hope and inspiration to those that we interact with. And if you can't give a child hope, you should find another line of work.
Glass half full. Yeah, it's actually a really perfect segue to our Bright Byte. So as you know well, at the end of every episode, we cover a Bright Byte, which is a spot where AI is making a positive contribution around energy, the environment, healthcare. But at the end of my keynote, this is such a nice group, Jonathan. I mean, all our groups are nice. It's really, you and I are very, very blessed and grateful to do what we do. A lot of folks came up afterwards to chat, and this kind of gentleman who's also just about to retire, he said, look, on balance, like, are you feeling positive about this whole AI thing? Because I talk very candidly about the opportunities and the challenges. And, I said, I am feeling positively. I will feel more positive because we've talked about hard things like deep fakes and the impact of hallucinations and misinformation, along with all the opportunity for learning. I said I will feel much more positive if one of these major breakthroughs, whether it's fusion for energy or, ALS took my dad or Parkinson's, right? Get a major, major breakthrough in health, in energy development, some really hard systemic problem that we've faced where there's a lot of potential for AI. And that's what, at some level, what's interesting about these Bright Bytes is that they are all small incremental wins. You can look over the last 30 episodes where we've been covering Bright Bytes or more, and they are really great stories, right? But they aren't major breakthroughs. So anyhow, it just reminded me of that conversation. But this is still, nonetheless, it's a great example, right? So this was in Axios, December 4th, just a few days ago. The geothermal company makes a big discovery using AI. So Zanskar Geothermal used AI to discover a commercially viable geothermal system in what they call Big Blind. So this is in Western Nevada. It's the first of its kind in 30 years. So the site had no visible geothermal signs, right? They had worked in this area and nothing. It sort of felt like it was tapped. But AI narrowed the drilling targets, reducing cost and improving precision, and the find supports, and they got this huge source, right? So the find supports geothermal's bipartisan appeal and the potential role in meeting energy demands. Zanskar plans to develop the site for power production, later this decade. And so here's a really interesting example where we thought this thing was cooked. And then we use AI to be able to collect lots and lots of data. We've covered a few stories around, both geothermal, but also seismic energy and the ability to measure lots and lots of things. So just big, big data sets and AI's ability to use a lot of powerful analysis to make meaningful contributions. So, is that nuclear fusion? No, but when you add up all these, small incremental wins that are these Bright Bytes, do they collectively make a more optimistic picture? I think so.
I hope so. And I hope that, the folks who have something to say about how things are regulated and how things are contained, just have perspective and context when they make those decisions. So we're sure to lean toward the Bright Bytes and not toward the, disaster scenarios that make for clickbait.
Yeah, well said. And a nice bow on that, Jonathan. All right, well, with that, my friend, it's great to have you back here, and I believe it is 100% time to
roll the credits.
Fantastic. Thanks for being with us, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, our new middle and high school student AI literacy course, and our Educator and Leader micro-credential, co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you for listening to ChatEDU.